Hello, everybody. Forgot to throw up some stuff here. Let the music finish out. And, yeah, we're watching Z.E.R.O's teaser trailer today. I haven't seen anyone do a frame-by-frame yet, and that seems like a fun thing to do. So let's immediately swap over. Throw on our YouTube here. And I will be turning off my PNG tuber here, because I want y'all to be able to see everything too. Well, I don't know. It would be fine on, like, YouTube, which has the vertical stuff. If there's something in that bottom right corner, meh. I'll leave it on. It's fine. Anyway, we're gonna open up, we're just gonna watch this, right? We're just gonna watch it straight, and then we'll go back through and, we'll talk about it and, what we know so far. So yeah, let's go. Hype, right? I probably should have just turned it off for the first one. Let's hit the replay button just so we can get it back at the start. And hi, Super Gamer Wake Apple. I'm doing well. How are you? Oh, I wanted to. Let's turn off alerts today. I don't want any of those popping up on the screen, and that automatically takes my VTuber off, which is fine. That's fine. Yeah, let's start with like some background on this, right? So if you're not familiar with .hack, .hack is Naughty's, 2000s IP, where it was originally set in like a near future of a lot of people compare like Sword Art Online. They're like, oh, Sword Art Online is like it, or Log Horizon or something like that, where it is a setting that interweaves internet and real life stuff in a like near future type of setting, and it is Japanese based, so it's primarily, I think, I have not watched everything. I am not like a super fan. I fell off after like GU, right? Um, but I think it's pretty much almost always been set in Japan. It's never dealt with anything from other countries, or while there may be some characters that are from other countries, they're quote unquote playing on Japanese servers, so like they're opting into a Japanese experience, so to speak. So we never get that like perspective from outside of Japan. So there's always that understanding that whatever you're watching is from the perspective of Japanese culture and that sort of stuff. And other than that, the other information we have is that, which I will probably go into here actually. If we back out of this, we've got, yeah, like so. This is a Famitsu interview, which is information about this. We could talk really quickly about how, yeah, this does a really good job of it. Latest installment in the .hack series, an RPG that takes players on an adventure in a fictional network game, which was released in 2002. The announcement of .hack Z.E.R.O excited many fans, blah blah blah. A lot of these words are incorrect. This is an auto-translated article. It's obviously default in Japanese, like all the images are in Japanese. I'm laughing at this. This is really hilarious. So we have a fan translated one, which is a lot easier to read specific things. Um, the announcement of .hack Z.E.R.O. Yeah, that's so funny. I thought it was doing a lot better with the translation. But right off the bat, we're notified that I can't highlight things because Google Translate wants to do stuff. That I'm scrolling, I'm scrolling, I'm scrolling. Bandai Namco's not really involved. They still own the IP, but they seem like they're really hands off in so much as they're not even taking any risk on this project, is what it sounds like. And yeah, this is all CC2, who made the original games and a lot of the other stuff. You'll see CC2 on a lot of the media from the previous series. It was a cross media IP, so there's anime, there's manga, there's light novels, there's mobile games and crossovers with other Japanese IP games. Yeah. We talk about how it's not normal the way that Bando Namkai Entertainment has been hands off, and I think this is an important. There's a couple of things in here, right? Let's scroll to the bottom really quickly. There's a statement. So first off, the music we heard, they specify that it's Taro Hakase, the quote unquote main battle themed. And you could hear it was a violin. And when consulting with Hikase about the basics, such as how to create the game and what loop playback structure should be, which I'm assuming is referring to musical loops. And then they basically did research. You're going to do that anyway, just to formulate how you're going to construct the work, right? And then adjusted the music. And then you can hear music created by Hakase in the teaser PV. So it sounds a lot like the music that we heard in this was specifically music that will probably be used within the project. At the very least, it's an asset in the project, so even if it doesn't end up in the final product, it's at least something they made during the development of this game, which it is confirmed to be a game to my knowledge. And there's also there's a disclaimer in here that I really want to get to. And it's near the bottom actually, so. Here we go. So when you look at the teaser, characters similar to Kite and Balma, yeah, we've seen that. We can't say much about the characters or the world yet. All we can say is that it's not a continuation of previous series. And the teaser that was released is a video, a concept video, I think is another translation of this, by Kamikaze Douga, and is not a real-time video of the game. So what we witnessed, which you could clearly see, like, there's 2D, like, anime elements, right? Which, again, going back to there being, this being a multimedia franchise, CC2 even frequently has, like, anime stuff within their games. So like, for example, in .hack GU, you had the Online Jack anime, like, cuts that were in there, which were supposed to be a representation of real world media that you could encounter online in that game, that offline representation of an online game. And yeah, so this is not something that is, like, fully representative of the game, but at the very least we can understand that it's first off, they call it a teaser trailer, so that we know that it must at least represent the project in some capacity at its state that it's in right now. To my knowledge, this is also, if we look at it, it's this announcement was for the 30th anniversary of CC2. Next year, 2027, is the 25th anniversary of the .hack IP, to my knowledge. So both this year and next year are really good bets on release, even though we have no information on release dates, as far as what they're probably aiming for, right? So with all of that, like, early disclaimer out of the way, let's get right into, like, the meat of the stuff. I'm gonna take a sip here. Let's, everybody get your drinks back. And we're gonna dive right back in here. So we'll play it, and then we'll stop at certain scenes. So obviously we're opening with a scene in a city. And the next shot should give us context. It looks very Japanese. So we have, like, a Japanese cityscape, right? We don't necessarily know, like, what city it is, but here's the real world, and it's set in Japan, right? There's, like, drone carriers, which is really cute, like package delivery. This is like that Amazon, drone package delivery, so we're seeing that happen. We still see that there's, like, cars, like regular vehicles. There's, people, crosswalks, all the normal stuff, but this is something that is, like, part of their vision for the future, right? Because the .hack's IP has always been, like, a near future thing. And then we cut to what is essentially what appears to be Twitter-like, right? Or an X-like. And we do have translations for this stuff, so let's actually just go back a little bit before the scroll. We're gonna do some frame by frame here. I don't know if we have translations for, like, this first message, but let's back out of this. Let's look at what the actual translations are so we have, like, context. Yeah, I think this is post-scroll, which there is this, which has the yellow icon, right? With the kanji in it. Let's line that up with our video here. No, so that's the first one here. So this first message here at the top with these replies in line. Let's see how many replies we have. So 1, 2, 3. We have 3 replies here before it gets to like a new post, right? So let's start with that top one there. Every day is so exhausting, it's just not funny. Even though I'm doing my best, I feel like I'm done, and society is starting to seem like an impossible game. So it's a pretty depressing post online, something that you'd be familiar with seeing online, especially if you have like some sort of like friend group, or even if someone is maybe just trying to reach out, like they're desperate, right? We have a lot of issues today with people. There's loneliness epidemics, right? You hear that term thrown around, where people are isolated because they're in America. I know that we don't have like third spaces as much, where it's like a classic example is like libraries, where it's a space where you can go to that it is a free public space to be with other people. It would be similar to a park or something like that. And to my knowledge, it's a similar thing in Japan, in so much as there is a lot more walking. It's less car-centric from the standpoint of there's a lot more expectation of walking, and they have better like transit that is public, that allows you to be around other people. But there's also a societal expectation that, for instance, on a train, you're not going to bother other people, right? You're not going to be on the phone on the train. But you're also not necessarily going to be having a loud conversation on the train with the person right next to you, right? So there is still that societal expectation and that reservedness. And in America, I'm going to constantly refer to America because that's the lens from which I'm viewing this from. Even on public transit in America, typically there is some isolation where a lot of people are not comfortable talking to another person on public transit, or, just in public. It usually takes a very specific type of personality that is super comfortable with talking with a random person on the street. Like, oh, wow, that's a really cute, I don't want to do something like gender specific, but like, if someone has like a phone cover, right? It's like, oh yeah, I really like your phone cover. And then someone's like, oh yeah, do you know what it's from? And then you might have a conversation of like, oh yeah, it's from .hack or something like that. And then you guys have a conversation about .hack. That is even still really rare, just in public. It's a lot more common at an event like a convention, where people are expecting there to be social interaction. But again, that is a paid event that you're paying to attend in most cases. It's less likely. It's not a public space. So similar thing there. Just to set up like the tone, right? This is something that you'll see in real life right now. So this feels very relevant. And then the next two, we have the 3 replies here. You sure it's not society that is fucked, but rather that your life plan is flawed? Blaming everything around you and escaping reality is hilarious. Maybe sarcastic / very judgmental response, which is a very easy thing to do online. It's something to always be aware of when you're communicating online, is to, especially if you don't know the person, we don't know if this is just a public thread, which we assume it's a public thread because they scroll past it. It appears to be something that is publicly available in some way that is not a specific small social group. So the context might be that this is not, your neighbor or your friend that you hang out with and you play, a card game with on the weekends or whatever. This is some rando on the internet just being like, it's so sad that you're clearly an inept human being, making this judgment call. Next reply. Even though I'm doing my best, the ultimate mark of a loser. Flexing your hard work when you have 0 results is honestly just cringe. So they quote the original post. They're basically calling them out and saying that like the words that you're using, the what you're how you're presenting yourself and the fact that you're reaching out is immature and useless. Right? Next reply. Before you say you're done, why don't you tell us what you've actually done? LOL. people who haven't done anything are the ones who say they're done. LOL. This one's pretty straightforward. It's you you haven't accomplished anything, so how can you say that you've tried, right? It's if you actually tried, there would be results. Um which is a fallacy of some sort. I would not be able to spit it out off the top of my head here, but yeah. And then it looks like they get blocked. So let's move forward in that. Let's go through this a little bit faster. Yep, blocked. Okay. So that last one gets blocked. And then we have... Oops, I went back instead of through. Maybe... I have to get used to the frame-by-frame controls on YouTube here. Did I skip past? Yes, okay. Yeah, so there's our blocked message there, which is that third message specifically, calling them out, saying you've not done anything. So you can't say that you tried. So we have this new thread, right? We have a new OP here. We're gonna just scroll down here. Thread 2. I try to live my life the right way, but getting zero payoff is really wearing me down. Honestly, I don't even get what to believe anymore. Basically saying, they're not trying to go the easy way out of, like, scamming people, right? Because they're not doing any quick, like, money schemes. They're not, you know, a drug dealer. Just any sort of the ways that it's like, oh, there's a need in our society that is not being fulfilled that I can make money off of, except it's illegal or society frowns upon it, that kind of thing. And then basically saying that they're treading water or, you know, maybe even sinking. A really, relatable experience, I think, for a lot of people who don't have the privilege of existing, like, funding, like large existing monetary investment, usually either from a lucky break or from familial relations, right? Either you've inherited it or it was given to you or you just got lucky and won the lottery, that sort of thing. And this person's saying, like, I don't know if I'm living my life the right way because it feels like there's not actually... I'm not doing it the right way, clearly, right? That sort of thing. And then we have one reply, it looks like. I just want to verify that. I want to make sure that we're still lined up properly, which I believe is... Yeah. We have one reply here. So we have this cute little drawing, this avatar here. And then we have the one reply. There must be a reason you get rejected. Ignoring why and instead... Oh, this is the wrong one. This one. There's nothing more untrustworthy than when people claim they're doing things the right way. The fact that you've got nothing to show for it should tell you everything, and yet you still don't get it. This is feeding into this person's fears, right? They think they're living life as best as they can, but they're not getting anywhere, and this person is saying you're not doing it the right way. And it's your fault for not realizing it sooner. Again, very judgmental, very internet, right? This is all relevant to today's society. Let's go down to the next thread. I should put these next to each other, shouldn't I? Let's put them right there. And it's so sad too because it's like, oh, they have a cute little duck in a little hot spring towel, right? It's a steaming towel, so you just got out of the hot spring. So cute. Doom scrolling. What's the next one? We've got 1, 2, and feels like it went a little bit too fast there. 1, 2, 3, and then we start seeing blocks on this one. So maybe this is a player character, maybe, because this one seems to be actively... We don't know. There's a couple of perspectives you could take on that. Let's just read through it really quickly to see what the content is first. When you're trying your best but you keep getting rejected, you just get hit by a feeling of emptiness. Like, what's even the point of getting up and going to work? Man, mood, right? When you're in like a dead end job, there's some days where I've heard from a lot of people, they get up and they just don't want to go to work. Like, it doesn't matter if it's providing money to sustain themselves because the life that they're living and that they're sustaining doesn't feel like it's worth it. Uh, I have been there before. Like, personally for me, it was like a corpo hell. Replies. There must be a reason you get rejected. Ignoring why and instead talking about emptiness is just escapism. Again, turning it back and just saying, like, it has to be your fault. There's no way that society is failing you in any way. It must be something you're doing wrong, a personal failing. Which is always a chance, right? Because when you're online, you don't get the full picture. But at the same time, maybe we should probe for more information before we start jumping to judgments. But it's easier to just call people out, right? They get blocked. Next one. Supposedly people who say, but I'm trying my best, usually are trying wrong. That's the problem with relying on self-evaluation too much. This is very similar to that previous one where, you're the first one, where you're trying your best and you're not getting anywhere. It's because you can't see your problem because you're too close to the problem. You need to have other people judge you and tell you what the problem is from their exterior point of view. Which sometimes helps, as long as they have the right amount of information. Sometimes you don't have enough information and it's not helpful to have an exterior perspective. But yeah, if you happen to have someone that is in the right position to do that, that's great. It's helpful. They get blocked. Reply 3. The reason you don't understand the point is that you haven't set a goal. It's a joke to talk about emptiness with such a brain-dead routine. This person is trying to provide at least some sort of solution to the person's problem. They're saying, you've told us what your problem is, and I've identified the solution as you aren't goal-oriented. You can't just go day to day doing the same stuff and expect something to change or expect things to get better. Even if, for instance, you think you're living life the right way. Again, they get blocked. We're going to scroll back up just so y'all can see who provided this. This is on Reddit, obviously. There's an initial post here. And the person who did the initial work actually thanked this person, I believe. It's probably somewhere in here. Where they were like, oh, thanks. Like, I had to go to bed. Thank you for making it a little bit nicer. Let's continue. So, there's a lot of ways that you could read into this, right? I think the first easy thing... Ooh, there's another message at the bottom that we didn't get. There's a fourth one down there. Is that, we don't know what perspective this is from. It feels very doom-scrolly. There's even a clicking noise that makes it feel like this is a user on a computer, right? This isn't, for instance, like an AI going through here and maliciously cultivating what the public narrative is going to be by selecting, like an algorithm, selecting what will be viewed based on how it affects things. And especially because it seems like all of the negative things are what's getting blocked here. This feels like a user that does not want to see this stuff, or might be trying to basically cultivate their own space. So if they're on Twitter, it's like, man, this person is just spouting off nonsense and harping on these judgment calls that they're making. They're not being productive to my plight or any, these other people's plights. So it's not worth looking at their stuff, so I'm going to block them. That's the vibe that I get from this. Maybe you have a different perspective. I'd love to hear it. And then I want to go back again. We've just watched that little bit. So they get blocked, and then there's like this classic .hack glitchiness, right? Which was very tropic at the time. And I love that they've maintained this because I still love the aesthetic of this. I don't care if this isn't how stuff glitches out all the time anymore, but yeah, this is great. Okay, so we have this for only one frame here, which is really interesting. This is very similar to like a video test frame where you have like maximum brightness and darkness to test like your monitor or your TV or something like that, and then some color tests to again make sure that you're displaying colors properly. But it still has this like Twitter bit out here, and this is that little ducky, that icon that user had. So interesting little glitched frame there. And even at the bottom, it's got like this kind of VHS warble. Again, I love the aesthetic, even if it's not quote-unquote accurate. And then it says cheater detected. Well, Twitter's not a game, so assuming that this is telling a narrative and we haven't just jumped and this isn't just a suggestion about the theme, it would appear that this is that text stuff might actually be in some sort of space that is saying that what you're doing is illegal. Like, right? So, this Twitter-like could be some sort of user interface in the game. Like, it may actually be that this .hack game has basically a Twitter feed in it. It would feel weird to put a bunch of personal information on there. So it seems reasonable that this could just be a thematic thing, especially because this is such a quick thing. It could also be a translation error. As we've seen so far, and going forward, that's always a problem. Is cheater detected the right words to use for the message that they want to send? Because this is embedded in the video in English by a Japanese company. I'm going to err on the side of cheater detected. Feels like it is something that is common enough and would probably be easy enough to get the idea across. But maybe there's some more Japanese, maybe the Japanese have additional uses for this phrase in Japanese that isn't just related to games. So it could be like, even on like YouTube or Twitter or something like that, that there is like you're trying to bypass ads or something like that, and it's like, oh, well, we're going to ban you because you're doing something that's illegal on our website. We have our website does these things by default, and you're blocking specific portions of our website. So maybe the block function that we see isn't actually within that Twitter feed. Maybe that's something that this person is doing themselves because that function doesn't exist. And the system doesn't like that. So that's an interesting consideration. I don't know what the full implications of that are without, a larger understanding and context, but it's an interesting thing to consider. We've got these nice little hexagons that are very .hack. Typically, the .hack logo, which we'll see at the end, is a hexagon. But they said that they chose not to do that for this because they just weren't sure about whether or not they wanted to reuse that, I think. But they said that they think they're going to bring it back. We'll get into that in later. All the nice colors. And then... good morning. The world. Do we think this is similar to encoding Hello World? Like this is like an initial thing that you do when you learn coding to output text? Because I think it would be very interesting. Let me take a moment to take a drink here. I'm getting very dry. This is the most talking I've done in a long time. And you know what? 1 second again. Okay, we're back. If we want to take that perspective, where we think that this is akin to Hello World, do we think this is possibly an AI that is coming to consciousness, right? that would be a fun like thing to play around with. This is an AI's awakening, is doing this initial step. I really need to stop moving in my chair. It's making so much noise. I apologize. Uh that's a fun consideration. I think the more straightforward consideration is just that this could be CC saying, hey, this is a dot hack video. Hey, the world still exists in whatever this game is, right? Because we don't have, in the Famitsu interview, we'll swap back over again. We shouldn't need this anymore. This one. There's a statement that this is not tied to the previous media of the Dot Hack franchise. Yeah, it's gonna be earlier. A project that has been in the making behind the scenes for a period of time stretching back to 10 years. We don't know that that was active development, so we don't know if that's just initial story beats that have been worked on for, like, the first 3 years or whatever, or if they were ironing out aesthetics or the theming that they wanted to do. 10 years is a long time, and it seems like, and a lot has changed in 10 years too. So if they want to be, like, modern relevant, not all of it could be 10 years old, right? There's certain things that they would want to have be updated as they find out that things are no longer relevant or didn't catch on if they had stuff that was 10 years old. Where's this statement in here? Oh yeah, so once again, stating that why don't you just do an original RPG? They want it to be dot hack. They're very explicit that they want it to be in the setting of dot hack, even if that setting is not maybe not one-to-one. We don't know yet. With the original IP, everything prior to this. The way that they say we've been able to release our latest title into the world on their 30th anniversary, again, assuming that that's not a mistranslation, suggests that probably later this year, right? Probably this year rather than next year. But with game stuff, you never know if it could get delayed anyway. This is a little bit of a weird translation here. CyberConnect 2 will be responsible for this new title from 0 to 100. We want this one. Which is... there must be something special about choosing .hack. Did I miss it? Oh, production structure up to now. Let's look at that one too. Right here. Okay, so we'll take full responsibility for this title from start to finish. The dot hack from 20 years ago represented the absolute limit of what we could achieve at the time. So basically saying dot hack as it was released in every iteration was the best we could do within the confines of what limitations we had. And they want to say that, like, this is going to be better just because we're better as a company. We have more experience, and that's exciting. That's always fun because that's letting us know that you can't expect it to be the same as the old series, because they're saying there's stuff they wanted to put in the old media that they could not put in for one reason or another. So that explains that a little bit better. This is where they go over there's real life and game within .hack as an IP. And they couldn't portray both equally due to budget. So that suggests that they feel like they have enough budget to be able to portray them better. I would assume also more skill. And they've primarily focused on the game, limiting depictions of the real world to email and web browsers. And I think this statement is specifically within context to the previous game titles, because we have series like Liminality, which is not a series, but OVAs, that came out with Infection, Mutation, Outbreak, and Quarantine, IMOC, that are basically entirely exclusively real world counterparts to what happened in the game. In Quarantine, the final OVA, it's in the case of, different people. Oh, that was Trismegistus, was the fourth one. There is a portion where they show some in-game stuff, and I believe in the case of My Manase, the first volume, they also show a little bit of gameplay animated, but it's presented in such a way that they didn't want to impede on what they had created in the game as an experience, but they wanted to suggest that there was more there than what the game was actually allowing you to do. They suggest, and especially in Sign too, they suggest that the stuff you can do in game is way beyond, as a user of the game in universe, is way beyond what you as a player in the real world can do in the game that we made to represent the game. That's going to be really confusing with all of these I don't remember what the right word is, but using the stuff that the characters can do in game and what the game is way cooler than what we made as a game that you can play on the PlayStation 2 or whatever. I don't want to get too lost here, but this is just setting the tone, right? And it at the very least, that's what it's doing, but it could be doing so much more. We don't have context to know what this means right now. And in the past, they've frequently just made sure to reference the world in their teaser trailers so that you know that it is still dot hack in the game, the MMO, the world. I don't believe we have confirmation that this is an MMO, although I think it's inferred in a lot of places, and it's probably safe to assume that the world is still an MMO in this setting. Alright, I gotta move my chair, y'all. I'm gonna mute for a second so I can make it less noisy. Alright, worse for my posture, but at least the chair will make less noise. It's really bothering me, and I really apologize for it. Alright, we have the music start up with the violin, right? So we've got our nice little glitchy bits here. We have a nice stone floor, and then we have a shoe. I saw somebody say when they were watching this live at the premiere, they were worried that this was a new Sonic game, and I assume that was satire to some degree, just because it comes immediately after The World. But it is a very humorous thing to me that the first thought upon seeing like the first in-game, to our knowledge, clips about this is that's a shoe and it looks like Sonic. And it's so funny, too, because it's like the limb is very Sonic. The proportions coming out and the giant shoe, like, proportionally, this feels very Sonic. Big, puffy heel. It's really cute. It's really funny. Kicking off, we've got some nice stuff. Again, so I'm gonna get into here what, something that might have implications. Let's go ahead and full screen here. This background is most likely 2D, right? It's like a painter's thing for animation, right? It's going to be a backdrop where they're going to composite in what I assume to be a 3D model that is animated. It's possible that this whole thing is 2D. But I want to err on, with the complexity of some of these things and the fact that they are making a 3D game, that probably mostly, aside from the real world stuff, which is very clearly and very limited 2D, I want to say that this stuff, the scenes that we're about to see again in quote unquote the world, the game, are 3D models composited onto 2D backgrounds. Just like they would do like in an anime. So like modern Gundam will, and a lot of other series nowadays will use 3D models for vehicles and structures and things just to simplify the work, and then they'll do painterly backgrounds for all of the normal easier, less detailed stuff that they can get away with making like a nice set piece, right? And I could probably, since we're going frame by frame, I'm excited. I have not gone through this frame by frame entirely. Is that clipping in the top left? I have a feeling this may actually be... Okay, I'm gonna laugh even more if that's literally just the end of the model. Like, the guy who made this, I forgot what his name was. Was it Nagao? The person who made this, because I don't want to assume. I want to say it starts with an H, but... Doga. Kamikaze. And I also don't know if that's even like a handle or their real name. Did they make this just for this shot? Like, did they, because maybe the rigs for the other models maybe don't have this. That especially, the fact that that frame has what appears to be either the end of the model with weird lighting or some clipping. I don't know, maybe that is just a sock. We need to see the rest of the model again, right? When we see a full thing here, we'll see if that's a sock. We'll come back. We're gonna skip through just quickly. Let's look at this. It looks like it's line work on the legs. Okay. So I think that's way more reasonable. There's like elemental symbols or whatever on the legs. Okay, so that's probably what that is. That is really nice to have thrown out. that question. Sometimes you have to look at stuff and you have to question stuff and you're like, hold up, I don't want to jump to conclusions here. Let's look at this in context. Alright, so it's probably just the same 3D model, and that's just the pattern, the material, and the texture that's on that leg. There's interesting line work on the legs, so... We've got these nice little, like, dust effects and rocks. Again, probably just 2D animated. It's highly unlikely that that's something that they made an effect for, a particle effect, or like yeah. Alright, and then we get our first, like, face shot of this person who is clearly, like, reminiscent of Kite, right? From IMOC, and we have throughout the media series a lot of Kite likes. So in Legend of the Twilight, there was Shugo, who was awarded an avatar that looked kind of like Kite. There's literally throughout all of them. In GU, there's like an evil zombie Kite that's like an AI. Goes by Tri-Edge. There's literally, I don't want to scroll out and find it, but there's literally a Kite for every single one of the series. And I think Kite even shows up at the end of Sign in a scene. So Kite is like in a lot of the media. I'm pretty sure in some of the books they aren't in there. Some of the light novels, like there's just no reason for them to put them in there, because as a cameo, it's harder to do that in a novel when you're describing important things. And they're just doing a little cameo thing, or there's a visual reference to harken back to while they're telling a different story. But yeah, this is a really cool design, right? So we have like what appear to be like some headphones, this little, I don't even know what you would call this kind of hat, where it's only like the back half of like a slouchy hat. It's really cute, but that's like harkening back to Kite. The headphones separated from Kite. There's a little choker with a little smiley face on it, which is really cute. They have a weapon in their hand. They have gloves. And they have the cheek marking and the blue hair. Very, very Kite-like. But obviously a distinct design. Okay, this is interesting. So this is another, I'm going to use this as another example of this is a 3D model. Because you can start with your keyframe. This feels like they set up their initial keyframe for this shot. And then there's an extra frame. I don't know. Let's see. Does it do? Okay, yeah. It's the way they rendered it. It looks like they rendered the 3D model at half the frame rate of what they're doing in the background and the rest of the compositing at. Yeah, that's so interesting. It's also possible they just have each one of these frames could be a keyframe and they're just 2 frames apart. But it's a choice. It's a choice they made. Look inside the gloves there. That's really cool. So that's the anticipation. They're going down to do this big jump that's after this that we saw. No, it's kind of like a little stutter there. Like they're tired. Which again, probably just a normal thing in the world, because we have some instances, I want to say, of that in like Sign or like Roots, where there's this more direct or interactive way to control a character in such a way that it feels natural, and it's not just you press forward, they go forward in a walk cycle. There's some other stuff that appears to have been a part of the world that allows you to do a lot more natural things, like maybe stuttering here. So it's not necessarily that this person is like in the quote unquote in the game where they're like fully controlling the character or they have like a bodysuit or something like that. But it is also possible that way too. So it's either way, but we have examples of this in prior media that wouldn't make it like exceptional, right? I think that's the point I'm trying to make. That this isn't something that's like, oh my god, they're totally in the game and they're fully controlling their character. It's like, no, we have examples that it seems like normal people playing the game can just do that. So like the facial expression has changed, but like the run cycle is the same here from that first couple of frames. Smash cut to this aura like. The big giveaway here, right, is like the infinity symbol that Aura likes have. Again, Aura's another character that is like kind of a recurring thing. That is usually a primary AI character. And AI in so much as a real-time developing entity, that has motivations and a personality, right? Even if those motivations and personality are affected by a larger perspective than just what their like in-game avatar would represent, right? And some of them are like child programs of an initial program. A lot of the times these Aura characters are related to one another because, again, if this is a new thing in the series that's detached from the original, then if it's like a full reboot that throws everything out, it's like, cool, this is a throwback, and this is just our token AI understanding. Like, if you're coming into this series with some understanding, you're like, oh, this is the AI character. That we just wouldn't know what the character is, but it could also be if wow, I'm getting a phone call. I'm sorry, everybody. I really need to take this. I apologize. Be right back. I apologize, everybody. We can pause right in the middle of Black Rose's theme. Let's throw the screen back up. And we were talking about this aura, right? Let me pull that back up for myself. Yeah, so interesting things about this character. They have these, slit pupils. They're, kind of cat-like, which there have been cat-like characters in the series in the past, so that would be an interesting thing for them to, tie into this AI character, right? Presumably AI character. Has the infinity brooch and has the, white hair and, just in general, pale thing. But normally Aura is wearing white. This one's wearing a dark suit of some kind, probably black. It's really hard to tell with the lighting. Which might say that this is a darker character. Instead of Aura's purity or whatever, this is an evil AI kind of thing. So I think there's been a lot of speculation about that so far in the fandom. It's really interesting to see where that goes. And I think there's been some suggestion because we've compared the visuals. I still think this is a 3D character, but it's possible that this is all these aura quote-unquote bits are just 2D animated things, because they can be just 2D layers that they've made in such a way that they animate them. There's some really cool 2.5D animation stuff that you see in League of Legends. Some other things use it pretty prolifically. Unfortunately, I need to take this phone call as well. I'll be right back again. I'm sorry, y'all. I apologize again, y'all. Gonna move my chair, it's gonna be noisy. Sorry, everybody, this is completely yeah, I have to take all phone calls right now, unfortunately. But let's get back to it. So we're on we've talked about Aura. Let's move on. Yeah, talked about how this could be a 2D asset. That's just a 2.5D thing. That's entirely possible. I still want to believe it's 3D, but it could be either or, honestly. The way that this is rendered, it could be either or. Alright, back to the kite-like. We see one of their weapons a little bit better here. And we see them, they're still running. We're assuming that they're probably still running in the same area, because it's the same stone floor. Nice shiny weapons. See the shoes. Well, they really just The forced perspective is really interesting to watch. All right, we can see both weapons clearly now. So that person's probably still uh as is historical, the kite-like is a twin blade, which is like a dual wielding short sword class. They always reverse grip like this in the series. So I apologize to anyone who knows real fighting and hates reverse gripping. This is a staple of the series, unfortunately. There's a really cool elemental marking on the wall that harkens back to the R1, which is Sign and Imok. Less so GU, which was R2 and had a completely different aesthetic appearance with like the steampunk fantasy instead of the Celtic fantasy is how I normally think about it. Like people refer to the music as like Celtic, but it's not that it's specifically. It's like a very Caucasian inspired stuff involved throughout different, but it's different parts of Caucasian cultures. I still think that's a 3D model, but it's possible. I don't. Yeah, I mean, it's entirely possible. It just depends on what the person's good at and what they think will be more efficient or effective for the storytelling. Oh, and then this is one of the shots that I really think this is a 3D model because we have a really good view here. There's a little stumble here. They're kind of like, oh, they're jumping. That was anticipation for the jump. They prep down just, I guess, to skip the stairs. Oh, and I love the little bag. It looks like a cross-body bag or like a side-body bag here. But in some of the designs, we can see that it looks more like Kite's little, like, arrow quiver pouch thing bag. Where it's more tube-like. Okay. Yeah, this really feels like they keyframed a 3D model and then composited in how they wanted everything to fit. Big stretch. Love the crosses on the front of the body here, like the shirt. We've got the strap for the bag here. We've got this like open jacket with like a zipper. And they've got some little danglers at the bottom to hook stuff to. There's a hood on this with a little bit of collar. You can see the bag in the background again. We can see there's the double sleeves. So there's the coat sleeve here, and then the undershirt sleeve that continues down, and then looks like this continues. This is a continuation of it that goes into that glove. And we can see the weapons even better here. Very modern looking weapons from the standpoint of it's not like a fantasy weapon, right? This looks like a knife you could go to a hardware store, not a hardware store, but like a sporting goods store where they'll actually sell like a lot of knives and they'll have stuff that's like in this style. Modern. I like this where they're grasping, they're landing, and the impact of the landing is, I dropped it. We have like a little stumble here. Oh, and you can see the bag is more of like a messenger bag here. So this is interesting. It has like a flip over flap or a zipper, but it's not like a circle, right? It's not like a tube. It's more like you insert stuff here and then you close it. Shiny weapon, continue to fall. Weapon goes away as they catch themselves on the ground. Disappears. I think this is one of our first indications for people that this is like a digital world, right? So this is like confirmation that this is in the game, The World. As that disappears. Scuff some ground stuff as they stop their momentum here from the stumble, from the jump. Looking behind, getting back up. And I think they're throwing their weapon away here. Yeah, yeah. They throw the weapon away. The smear on this is really interesting. Because they could have rendered this and then smeared that in post when they did the compositing. Otherwise, this would suggest that those are like 2D assets, right? But I think that is just it was smeared in post. Hard to tell, but yeah. The way this whole thing is rendered with the like I've forgotten what it's called, but the chromatic aberration, where different chromatic layers are slightly offset from each other, they're not aligned properly, makes the style it adds a layer of you can't exactly tell what's going on here. But stuff like this hand especially, like you see this like straight line here that's showing that the way that this is animated, it's most likely that's a polygon. The way that it was rigged, like when they open their palm like that, that's just a polygon, a single polygon that's been stretched that really suggests that this is 3D. Weapon goes flying. They're like, well, I got rid of one weapon, let's get rid of the other one. It does the same thing where it disappears. They're still looking behind themselves and they're kicking off to run in a new direction. Looking ahead where they need to go. They look a little worried here. So if we want to talk about like what emotions this character is feeling, they've got their eyebrows up, and specifically with like the scrunched together in the middle that is very typically used for like some kind of like worry. I don't know if that's the right emotion to specifically align it with, but they also have normal pupils, so they have like round-ish. It is oval, but it's not a cat-like pupil like the other character we saw, so there's some differentiation there. A little bit closer. And then there's a nice little close-up of that messenger bag, too. Really looks like a 3D asset here where it doesn't open up, so like if that is a zipper, and this is a flap, it's not made to open up in 3D, right? There, you don't have that extra layer of the flap on top. There's no gap there or anything like that. But it's also possible that that like zipper is just a front thing and there's some other opening that we don't know about. Cut. Smash cut. We have a character in the foreground in pink armor, light hair. It looks a lot like, reminiscent of the character Black Rose. I'm gonna call them a Black Rose-like. They have a giant sword, not as giant as it was in previous series. The armor's like, filigree isn't the right word, but it's adorned with like gold edges, which is a nice choice in my opinion. I like the highly detailed parts inside of that is very like modern fantasy MMO armor, right? It's usually super detailed just because we can afford to do high-res materials and textures nowadays. And she still has the tanned skin, too, like Black Rose does. Sword comes into perspective here, and we can see another character coming on the side. I really love these tabards on this design. It has the thorns that were prevalent on previous Black Rose models. And like Mimiru, the Black Rose likes. And it also does have the like Z.E.R.O, like body paint stuff going on, where it's got like the light stuff. Which in the previous models she had thorns on her body, so I think it was on her legs though. We'll have to look as we go through this. But yeah, giant sword, giant two-handed sword. Looking at her legs here, she's got like a strap here with some kind of something on her leg. The flap of the tabards is really nice. I like all the straps and stuff on her too, where it's not just a single thing. This looks bustier than I'm used to Black Rose being. The other character is still really blurry, so we can't really tell what's going on over there. We can see the feet. The way the feet are angled too really makes me think this is a 3D model. This feels like the ankle joint wasn't rotated properly to really fit flat with that. Like this one, you can clearly see that the leg comes down and then the ankles angle at a different pose, whereas this one is like the ankles pushed forward, but not... From our perspective, if we're looking at the back of the foot, this wasn't rotated counterclockwise to make this foot more flush with the ground. Camera, is the camera? Yeah, the camera's moving. We can see the ground moving here. So the camera's swinging around. She's not moving at all. The other character is possibly static at this moment, like from a production standpoint, but the inference is that they're rushing at this character. I am sad it's so far away because I really want to see these. Yeah, I really feel these two models are like static right now, aside from any, like, you can see the tabards are moving. But like the distance between them is the same while the camera rotates around. And I don't think this character, which as we get to see close-ups looks a lot like Ball Monk, like a Ball Monk like, doesn't appear to be, like, his hand stays in the same position. So as they show off this like showdown, alright, now she's is she? I think that's just camera rotation. She's not really moving. Okay, now the sword's for sure picking up. You can see the sword gets picked up right there. It's almost... she's leaning down, and then the sword is getting picked up in parallel with the body. To get ready to swing around. Ultimate character... oh! Something moves here. Is that the cloak? It looks like the shoulder cloak is moving here. I think that's possibly just us being behind the character. The character's probably still stationary. Again, looks super busty right here, and the waist looks super thin right here, but it comes like down here. It's not where that line goes in, it's like right here. But yeah, it looks very busty compared to what we're used to. I love seeing under these panels. The fact that this piece continues up and does that, that's another piece of evidence I'm going to throw on the pile. I'm going to evidence in air quotes here because it's all biased and from my perspective. That this is a 3D model because they probably just rendered it up there just so that there wasn't an ending, right? But it's also possible if they were doing a 2D animation of this that they would have drawn that in because they think that would have made sense. A lot of times, though, with 2D models, you'll see they'll assume that the lines stop, like at the next panel or piece. So yeah, that feels like a 3D model still. Background's obviously composited 2D. The nice field with the mountains, I guess I should talk about that. This looks pretty reminiscent, without too many references to old stuff. There were, open fields with mountains in the backgrounds in previous entries. We're now behind this character. I think at this point, this character's probably been slid closer, but they're still, like, static. You can see that the shadow, depending on where the light is coming from, appears closer to the Black Rose like. Which now that we're rotating around, we can really get in here. And she's adjusted, her sword is now like way up in the air. She's like crouched down. Which feels like she's gonna jump. I don't have this choreography memorized, so it's kind of a surprise for me as we go along here. Is that character still static? Okay, he is moving his arm here. You can see it's being brought forward, not just the camera angle, but it's actually rotating it like his shoulder. And there are belts, like, on his arm, which previously Ball Monk had a lot of belts. I'm actually really glad they got rid of all the belts. I thought it looked really dumb. I was not a fan of Ball Monk's belts in the previous entries. I really love, like, this... I don't know what you would want to call it, but the shoe. I'm just gonna call it a shoe because it is a shoe. It's not something that goes over a shoe. It's literally his entire foot covering. It's not like a, I forgot what you call it, but like a gauntlet, but for the foot. Yeah, it's not that. It's a full shoe, which is very typical of, like, fantasy stuff. Same thing with Black Rose. She's got heels, and it's a complete, like, shoe ensemble. But I love these designs. Very, very fantasy anime. What are we doing here? The hair's a little flat here on the Black Rose character. Got some more of that, like, glitching perspective. Alright, we're getting closer. Someone pointed out that Black Rose has these, like, dark fits on her limbs, which we'll see on like the Aura character later. Other people pointed out that this is probably like the vines, like we talked about on this right here. Same thing here. You can see it still has the Z.E.R.O like lighter makeup slash tattooing slash painting. This does look very viney to me, but there's the consideration people have said of like some sort of like infection or something like that that's hinted at. It's possible. Again, really love these tabards. I feel like they were a really good choice. Design-wise. Oh, I love this. The floating elbow piece. That feels like one of the big pieces of evidence that this is a 3D model, because you have to have things that just float because they don't make sense. And in 2D, you would want to like do something to fudge it from certain perspectives. So that really makes me feel like that's a 3D model. What are we doing here? Come around. A little blurry, which I don't like, but... So this character on the left, this Spellmonk-like, has like, he's like rotating now. Like his arm is way up above us, which makes it feel like he's... If he was at this orientation before, y'all can see my mouse, right? I don't know if y'all can see my mouse. If he was at an orientation where he was leaning forward like he was Naruto running, it looks like he's starting to pull up, like he's starting to stand more upright while he's floating up in the air like this. Also some clipping here, which is understandable. Some clipping here too, we can see. Okay, here's the big, powerful swing. And we can see the Black Rose character's legs a little bit better. Oh, I love this rose on the like belt here. The center, top center of the tabard, like placement. That's awesome. I love that. Did not notice that before. Alright, she's bringing her weapon up, and we can see his weapon is coming down. Again, still feel a little... The hair here is very flat, which is an interesting... It's more realistic, right? It's less of the anime, like on the Kite character, we still saw they had the little spikes coming out from under their hat. Black Rose had a similar aesthetic on the back of her head, where she had a bunch of spikes coming out of the back, near the nape of her neck. We can see a lot of the close-up details on this, like, Ball Monk's armor. Again, I really like that they have all these inset details on all the armor. Very pretty. Very cool. Oh, we can see what's probably a joint, a polygon joint here, where the tabard, like, bends up really harshly. You can see the flower really nicely. We can see these a little bit closer. It's still hard to tell if these are thorns or, like, some sort of, like, don't know what the best way to call it is. Like a tar, like, grasping infection sort of thing that you see an aesthetic of that is very commonly used to depict, like, corruption, right? Nice gleam as their swords clash. Camera's swinging out wide now. Trying to see if there's any specific details we can call out here that we couldn't see before. Like, we can see the wings coming off of the sword, which, if we want to look at these designs a little bit differently while we're here, let's go back to here, right? Because there's designs here. So, this is most likely the character, the Ball Monk-like character that we've seen. And is there one? So we have the kite-like one, there's the weapons there. Again, this is all in the Famitsu article online, so you can review it. Something else that might be worth looking into. So, like, this is very clearly, like, 2D concept art, right? It's very sketchy. We have translation for this, too, which we'll get into a little bit later. And then you have this very clean... Let's actually zoom in on this, right? Open image, a new tab. There we go. Just so we have it at max resolution for the purposes of this. Oh, so the purple shading that we saw in the trailer appears to be, like, it's possibly blue and purple hair, right? A lot of these things look the same. Like, this is still like that messenger bag. You can see actually the little zipper dangling there. There's the stripes on the legs. Very courier coded, right? There's the weapons. Again, just looks like a modern... Like, if the blade was smaller, it would look like a switchblade, right? They're showing the different layers on here. There's like an outer layer, that's this bit, and then the inner layer with the blade. Not sure. Oh, this is just showing profile lines up here. Yeah, I can't read any of this, but we can pull out translate later. Showing that there's a gap here, I guess. Yeah, I would love to translate this. This is not quite high enough quality, probably. But maybe someone who can read Japanese natively can read that. Let's go look back at the other images in the article. See if we can, if there's a Black Rose image in here. We just have like screenshots. And then, oh, we have a back shot of the kite character here. Again, shows the messenger bag. Which it looks like in this, the intent is that that is a zipper on the front panel and that there's another access point probably up here on the top. Pouches on the legs. And the back one for sure is very sketchy, right? That one definitely looks like a drawing. But these are cleaned up way more than some of the other images we've seen. Got some emotions. Very reserved emotions, right? Like, the one on the bottom right almost looks like, Tsukasa-like. Very, like, demure. The angry one is still pretty reserved. The surprised one is still, like, pretty reserved. And then this, like, joy is pretty reserved, too. So, like, not super exuberant character. Very interesting. Alright, let's go back. So we don't have images of this like Black Rose design yet. Okay, now it's clearing up pretty well. Just a nice look. You can see, oh, that's an interesting, I think that's the tabard coming up, yeah. So on the right-hand side, we have the hip plates, right, that swings up, and then it looks like it starts to curl. That's just the tabard coming up from behind that, and it just happens to be, you know, the same color, so it looks like it bends when it doesn't. Again, we can't see the stuff on her legs very well. Just kind of viney / graspy. And then smash cut back to black dress, white hair girl. And we have our kite character running in the background. I could see this being another 2.5D like Aura model. Could be 3D, no idea. Or 3D kite running in the background. And she's just watching, so theoretically, this character's been running from some unseen force, and it's apparently not this character, this Aura character that we've seen, because she's just waiting here and watching. They're running away, and they don't even look up there. They're worried about whatever they are running away from. So unless she is teleported up here and just is doing the zombie film thing where she's always right behind you even though she's not moving that quickly, it's unlikely that this Aura character is the one that's chasing this kite character. Smash cut to Skaith's wand, covered in chains and rope and feathers. Not much to look at here. This is... The chains are for sure, I want to say for sure, a 2D asset. The wand does look like a 3D asset, and it looks like they just chained it up in post. Specifically, the way that the faces are intersecting does not look like how they've animated this stuff in the past, but it's entirely possible it's 2D. The feather, I want to guess it's 3D, but I mean, it would be really easy to do a really simple 3D effect with it. Because it starts out like pretty white, right? Yeah, so this could be a 2D or a 3D thing that just has different effects on it. But the message here is this white feather turning black, which is a really interesting idea here. Is this corruption that we've been talking about? Or are we just reaching? Is there something else that is like a light to dark? Because this is Project Dusk, when day turns to, night. That's a possibility. So the theming could be pointing towards that. I like the little god rays. I forgot what these are called. On the top right here. The aesthetic's really nice. It's really reminiscent of the old media, the anime media. Another smash cut to... We've got the nice mountains in the fields. We still have the chromatic aberration on everything, which is a very specific choice that they've made in this trailer. Alright, we're backing up on this, like, ball monk character. Did he swing his sword all the way? Okay, he swings down. Is his arm all the way back now? Because that's the sword in the back? Yeah, it's like he's bounced off of the Black Rose sword. He looks very angry here. Very, like, intent on, this isn't sparring, right? This face is not sparring. You can, but usually you won't have the mouth grimace. Even if your eyes are intense, you'll still be smiling if you're sparring and enjoying it. So this looks like this is definitely some kind of, like, fight or, like, this isn't for fun, right? We can see the design from that other ball monk stuff where there's armor on top of the fingers but not below them. That's retained. I want to compare this really quickly. So he's got like this reverse S on the left shoulder. I'm assuming it's like an S on the other shoulder. Let's look at it. Let's go to the ball monk like concept art. No, it's only on that one shoulder, which is fine. Oops. New tab. Yeah, so we've got this like reverse S on the bit here. There's the flared ear bits. Do we have that on here? Yeah, they're up there. They're just slightly off screen and they end off screen. And they're not high contrast to his hair or anything. A lot of his outfit is very monocolored. He has all of this light blue to white. And then the gold accents and then the dark blue cape here. Like that, almost like violet or purple that's leaning on a blue side. On the front of his pauldron, he has this, it comes back, it's an incomplete pauldron at the bottom, the fourth piece, that has a front and a back piece that doesn't meet up in the middle. He's got the, like, scaled chest plate, which is interesting. I think all of that matches here, yeah. The shoulder piece, it looks like it doesn't move. It's underneath his arm here. And he's got, like, a gold wrist gauntlet thing. Yeah, that's like that, like, bracelet around there. With the belts. Fluff on the other side. Yeah, there's fluff there. Yeah, this all looks the same as that drawing. We can see the hip here. I'm gonna double back to that. It's not really visible in this one, but you can see like the crotch plate's the same. The effect persisting on this cloak here, is that a tear? Like, you can't see the clouds behind it, and it has a solid, like a definitive edge, and it doesn't go away with the other, like, sword effects. I'm not sure what that is. This tear on the edge of the fabric, I'm not sure what that is. If anyone has any ideas, let me know. Let me also double check, because I did have... Yeah. Go back in here. And now he's just turned around. We can see under like a top is that just a piece of debris that goes away? No, no, those are tabards. Okay, those are like shoulder tabards. It's interesting that they're just like this brownish color on the bottom. Like it's textured with a solid flat color. That doesn't match, like you would expect it to be like the white or the like bronze, right? And even like his cloak is like the blue on top with the highlights that's like painterly, and then on the bottom it's very solid, but it matches the top of the cloak. And the back of his chest plate. Yeah, those shoulder pieces don't move, which is an interesting choice. That's annoying for like when you have to think about clipping. I want to look at those tabards on that other drawing. Okay, yeah, those are the little like I don't know what I want to call them. They're like seals. There's just very interesting little additional cloak bits. I didn't realize they're like separate pieces, but yeah, you can see here they're separate pieces. That's a cool design bit. Full screen again. Doing a spin here. More clipping down on the tabards by his legs, where his legs are rotating around in a kind of awkward manner. The tabards keep spinning with the hips. Still love the like armor on the side, the hip armor that's swinging around and flailing out. That's really cool. So why is he... Okay, that's just a decorative spin, I guess, as he's like backing off. It's like I bounced off the weapon. And is that some of the tear? Can we see some of the tear on the top of the cloak there now too, in that blue? That's not on this drawing, right? No, his cloak is intact. It's got the little horns. Which the horns remind me of another character in Dot Hack from GU. The small child that's in charge of, what, Moontree or whatever? I don't remember what his name is. I can see him in my mind's eye, but I can't remember what his name is right here. So might be interesting if they're like combining some aspects from some other characters that may not make a visual appearance. Cloaks flapping down. Oh, I see. They moved the shoulder pieces like out of the way. As his like cloak is coming down, you see how it's like pushed forward in front of the arm? That's the top of her head coming into view there. He's still settling. Alright, her hand's getting ready to grasp her sword, her second hand, her left arm there. She's getting ready to grasp the sword. We get a little bit of a close-up of the back of her. We can see the hair still has the chop cut in the back. It just doesn't flare out like it used to. He's getting ready for her approach. And then we go to the side view with the grass in the foreground that blurs the action. We're probably going to skip through this because there's not a whole lot to see with all the blurs here, this action sequence. I do love this. This is, he's like flipped over. You can see the tabards from the shoulder cloak splayed out as his feet are way up in the air, his sword's pointed down low. He does this flip. She's swinging around. He's getting out of the way. Completes the flip over here to land. That's such a nice shot there. Everything flowing in the wind as he comes in for a landing. Very soft landing here. It doesn't feel like he's landed from here. Like he's still floating, but he can stop his momentum and move anyway. And then moves back in while she's recovering. And she blocks with the larger blade. He's cutting across, slides off the blade. Gets to the other side and immediately starts charging back in again. She's recovering from that and readjusting to block again. He does like the same move with this like dash attack, just from the other side. She's recovering. He's already ready to go for another round. And you can see here his sword is curved. Like it's... You can see the curve there, which I would assume is just from action, but it's also curved here. And it's not smeared, so I feel like that's intentional. Do we have his sword in that image? No, there's no sword here. So it seems like his blade might be curved, which is an interesting choice. Does she, like, fall down? What is this? Is she preparing to attack again? Looks like they're both preparing to go. Alright, yeah, she is coming in for another attack. Or at least to defend. Because he's now coming back in with another dash. She is moving. Okay, he's gonna dodge over it. So she's swinging and he's dodging over it. That's a really fun... Man, this is just such a nice thing to watch, visually. Again, blade curved here, but there's actually smear on this one. There's frame smear here. Man, if only she could carry that momentum from her sword to hit him on the other side where he's landing. Like you do in real life. But it stops and she has to readjust as he lands on the other side. Flips around. His silhouette is just so nice with the cape. They really put in here how slow, like, Black Rose is with the larger sword compared to how fast he's reacting and just coming back in again. It looks like she's, like, outmatched, right? In terms of, she's not taking hits, but he's dodging the few strikes she can throw, and otherwise he's throwing out a lot more strikes. Look at this dash. That big smear frame. She's coming back in, she's defending. There's an example of where her sword looks curved with the smear. Even though we've seen it's not. There's a lot of shots of his blade being straight, and I'm not sure if that's just because we're at a profile. Like either at a profile or not at a profile on his weapon. Because it looks very thin. She's recovering, rotating back around. Looks like he hits her here. Or she's dodging away from it, one of the two. Like she's either dodging backwards. Oh, okay, her sword blocked it. It's just the way that she got hit, yeah. It passes through her chest rather than is led by her hips. Is he swinging back around again already? He's closer into the foreground here, so he's further away than he looks here. She's rotating back around, he's rotating back around. A face. Again, looks very angry here. Does not look like someone who's having a good time or is sparring. Neck is very painterly. Like the floof on the left. You can see the like lines that they've put on the floof. There's that wrist bracelet again, and that like bronze as his sword's coming into view, swinging up at a diagonal. He always has that same hand pose. It feels very anime, very Japanese. Alright, we can also see here, while his arm is up in the air, the back of that lower shoulder bit that sticks out on the other side. Does he have that on everything? Let's look here. Yeah, it's on both sides. So the back of that right shoulder, the part, but it's not on the front of the right shoulder. Okay, interesting. So there's basically 3 of those parts instead of 4. Very interesting choice. Makes him look asymmetrical, you know. It's kind of nice. But we can see that part just dangling down in the back there. Swinging it back down. He put it all the way up and now he's swinging it back down. Sends like a wave attack. Through the wind, it looks like. Or is he just prepping for a dash? It's possible. He doing a jump. He doing a big jump. Love the pose. Like, very arrow-like with the hips splayed out like that. And with the sword. Coming back. Doing a flip again. And now he's, like, pushed off of the air. Looks like to come back down. So he did, like, a full frontal flip. Yeah, he did a full frontal flip. Now he's pushing down. Doing, like, a down dash. It looks like his sword is straight here, so it's probably a straight sword. It's just the frame smear made it look curved in the other stuff. Nice close-up really quickly before it comes in for the kill. And then we smash cut away again. Alright, we got the chase scene back. Another stumble. Surprised. Oof. We can see the bag writing a little bit here. Which is not on this side of the headphones, worth noting. Someone was pointing out the writing on the kite character's bag, I believe shoulder and headphones is all like the same thing, so they're not sure if it's like a brand or something. But here's another shot of the writing. Let's actually... So if we assume that this is upside down, it looks like it ends with like a, you know, dot and then N-O. And the writing still has that kind of pseudo-Celtic kind of vibe to it. Don't know what the characters are called. Alright, now we have a shot of, this is where the thing, whatever the thing is catching up to the kite character, right? They're like, they stumbled, they're getting back up to look behind them fearfully. And would normally be trying to run away. Now everything is glitching out as it approaches. Which is the first we've seen of this, like here. They're blinking and they're surprised as it's catching up so quickly. They're trying to block it. They're like, no! And it gives the vibe that it's like going inside of them, right? This is still their eye, just inverted. Yeah, this is just like a further close-up, possibly, because it looks like this is still their eye. That's still the... Let's see if the next frame shows more of this. Yeah, that's still the eye. Does it become vertical slitty? It's hard to say. Glitchy frames. We have some text over the eye. Someone was looking to figure out what some of this is. I think they said that it gets better. Yeah, it's this one. So it's literally just the beginning of this text here. And we have a problem has been detected and your system has been shut down. It's basically blue screened here. Someone also looked at like this date stamp. Let me pull this up. I didn't prep this one in advance, but there is actually a... Someone pulled up the code for that date stamp. Let me Control F here. Let's get in the toolbar here. So it's 2D3 DD17C. And if we look that up, this was Lonko. The most part, the only thing that they could translate was the date stamp to a time of, I'm assuming January 20th, 1994, at 00 34 minutes 4 seconds UTC time. So we don't know if that's just they put gibberish in there or if that date is relevant to something. So that's a fun thing. Also, twilight.exe. It's been stopped. Glitchy screen. C2 command.ext. Session ID, connecting to server, you have a new message. So this is like a message pop-up. I don't think we have translations of these that I have seen. So if we get to the end frame of this, I'll pull up Google Translate really quickly. Yeah, before we get too far. Oop, I left my phone in the other room. 1 second. Pulling up. I don't even know if I still have Google Translate on my phone, but we'll see. Yes, I do. Let's take a camera. Oh, it says it needs to update. Oh, unfortunate. This sucks. Okay. I know the first character in that first line says ma. I have not practiced Japanese in a long time, so I don't... Is it fully installed? It says... Translate. Oh, I see. They've replaced the app with, you have to have a different app enabled. Alright. First message. Let's see if I can... Whoa, it like crashed. It did not like that. It's being updated again, apparently. Interesting. Wow, I'm having fun tech issues. Okay. It's telling me, this is so.hack. Uninstalling Translate unsuccessful. I have never gotten that message in my life. I've never gotten a, like, this action unsuccessful on my devices. Alright, it looks like it's done updating again. Let's try this again. Can I take a screenshot of this, please, so I can just look at it? Yes. Oh, unfortunately, it still has, because it's a screenshot, it still has all of the useless information on there. That's not helpful. Okay. As wow, this app is really not great functionally. Come on. You have a I want to select all and I want to read it. I don't want to search. I just want to read the text that you have. I can't see it because this is so useless. Wow. Can I just see the stuff that I've translated? Like why is this so difficult? Like when I get up close enough, it translates the names and then I can't read the rest of the message because it's blocked by UI. That's so sad. Anyway, first message says, "Do you still think someone will explain?" Next message. "It feels good to visit you in the hospital. Stay quiet like that." I have heard this translated. Next message. Same. Oh, yeah, it's slightly different. "Even if the plating doesn't come off, it's still plating." Next message. "Living is the state of doing what you should do." Next message. "What's wrong with you? Every time I talk to you, it's just a fight." That feels really disconcerted. I'm very curious if this is like. So, the fact that this is so disconcerted, this almost feels. Oh, Snake's Guardian. Subaru's translation. Return. Interesting. Man, I really wish I could just translate this on screen for y'all. The the way that this is disconcerted, like it's not connected, that's not the right word, but it's not connected, makes it feel like these are actually like chat messages that are popping up in a like public space, right? Let's look at the next one. Oh, and there's more at the bottom. Let me see what that is. The next message that popped up was, "I want to at least be worthy of your hatred." Then, "There are gods in this world in the polytheistic sense. In other words, they're monsters." That's a statement. Next box, before we lose all of that text. This is cut off, but "Experience makes fools even foolier," so I guess more foolish. Next message. "Listen, it's your funeral, Belle." Next message. "We have no choice but to live like we're wandering in this." Next message. Oh, in this world. That's the next line. "We couldn't become AI or virus bugs, so this world is in its twilight. When you say it suits us well, we have no choice. We can't refuse. Please don't wake me up." Final line. "A master of the game knows when to quit." So I believe this section that has the "This world is in its twilight, it suits us well, please don't wake me up." I think that's a line that's going to come back at the end. So we'll see after this smash cut what happens here. We're in a glitchy area now, right? It's not just affecting around the kite character like on a monitor, it's actually affecting like the digital space within the game, it appears. But not affecting the character itself. We have our... This gets revealed to be the Aura character, right? Has dark legs that fade up into the light, which could be that like corruption that we've been seeing. Or it could be something completely different. It could just be a design choice. Oh, this zooms out more, so we can actually see it better. Let's just double check that text that is on the left to see if it still has the same translation as previously when it was cut off. "Experience makes a fool even dumber. Listen, this is your funeral. I have no choice but to live my life wandering around in this world because I couldn't become a wandering AI or a virus bug. This world suits us well at dusk. The truth is I have no choice. I can't refuse. Don't ask me. The master of the game knows when to quit." Then we have a bunch of the Twilight EXE stuff on the right. Bunch of pop-ups that we can't read. They're too small. They're fuzzy. Someone might be able to translate if they're a native speaker. our native reader in the bottom left, that text, it looks like it's not quite too fuzzy early on. So like that top line can probably be translated. This page on the far left behind that box appears to be an inverted, a problem has, been detected. It looks like it's the same box, just reversed, mirrored on that side. It's probably true for the rest of the background. It's probably, yeah, it looks like it's just the same thing over and over again, which could be different clients, right? So showing that this is a mass problem that is occurring. Which in universe, there's an event called Pluto's Kiss where, like, there's an initial large outbreak of a virus that makes the world trajectory change because only one OS was the one that survived the virus, and they end up taking over the market. So we might have some parallels in that here, or this could just be saying that, like, there's a other kind of virus outbreak that's infecting a lot of clients. Or it could just be a design choice to keep using that same image in the background to just show that there's just a lot of pop-ups. Again, this text here might be legible for someone who's a native speaker, but a little too blurry. Alright, here's that text on the headphones that match what's on the bag. We've got like 3 characters, a little circle, which is probably another character, and then 2 more characters. I do want to say I love this kite character's little padding on the back of the palm. It's so random, but I like it. Okay, here's our Aura character walking up as this person's like... The kite character was hiding, right? The last we saw of them when that thing was approaching them, they were trying to protect themselves, and now they're like... the vibe I'm getting is that they're like, oh, I didn't get hit. What happened? Like, is the thing still chasing me? It's gone. And then there's kind of still some worry in this face. Like uncertainty, but they can tell someone's walking up behind them, so they need to look. And our Aura character's back there. We get all the way to this point. Some people brought up, like, Z.E.R.O. This shot in particular gives me, like, Z.E.R.O. vibes, which is another Aura-like from one of the media. Or one of the mediums. One of the medium of .hack. Is that the right way to say that? Continue this shot. Again, more text that's a little bit too blurry. It might be repeated. I can't quite see enough stuff to see if it's repeated. It looks like it's different. But it's blurry enough that it's hard to see. There's like this Windows box of like this Windows non-responsive, close the program, wait for the program to respond. That's kind of fun. Like it's causing freezing, and then the unexpected error has occurred with the blue screens of death popping up. More text that's like Twilight. Exiting Twilight, it looks like. Smash back to the Aura-like character. Still think this is 3D, but it could be. Yeah, especially with that skirt underneath. I feel like this is a 3D model. Like I said earlier, there was a chance that that other Aura, like a close-up frame, looks like it could be a 2D thing, a 2.5D thing, but this really looks like a 3D model to me, which makes me think that they're probably the same. I've seen some people say that they can't see the infinity symbol on this character, so they assume that this one's different. There is something on her neck that appears to be the infinity symbol there, or it's below the neck. It's from the perspective we're looking up at the chest here. So one of the things to consider is that the camera's not moving here, right? The camera's just panning. Let's play this naturally. So like the legs are way closer than the rest of the body. But it's static enough that like I could see it being 2.5D, but it's the way that it's rendered makes me think it's 3D, especially the pointer finger on the right arm and the thumb. And then there's like some light clipping through where the thumb is intersecting with the palm that feels like an artifact of like it just didn't render the lighting properly. You wouldn't have that in 2D unless it's just a painter error, you know? Or like another type of clipping error in a 2.5D thing. Alright, we've got her reaching out and our kite character reaching out. So they appear to at least trust this person enough. They're like, oh, you scared away the bad thing, possibly, or you're protecting me. But then there's this wild, like, alright, I'm opening my hand to you. And then it's like, ah, I got you now, sucker! This wild grasp that feels very malicious. And I want to watch this one in real time again, where it seems like she's reference we have for this in iMock is, you know, editing the character data of the kite character and adding the bracelet to them. And people have pointed out the markings here that are rotating around this are from the Ryu books from iMock, which were associated with specifically, there were progress markers in the game that felt a little bit like a meta device in the game, but they were specifically tied to the bracelet. It was something you had as a character that had edited data that was not in the base game. Let's go back. I want to watch that grasp. Like I said, I want to watch that at full speed because just how fast that happens. It feels so malicious right at the end there. More errors. Maybe some of this text could be translated. It's a little bit too blurry. Like, the intent is obviously there's a bunch of errors popping off. What is that? It's probably the program has encountered an error and needs to shut down or something like that. Something this application. The application has probably encountered an error. And then it's got like the error line, which is like 00x11, you know? And then something this application. And I think this is where we get the... Oh, back to the fight. Alright, so this is a top-down view from on top of the cliff. They're still duking it out down below. And still at a stall. Black Rose defending. There's another shot of his blade looking curved. Like, it's even curved there. Looks curved here, and he's like flipped around. He's done a 180 here. It's not a 180, but it's close. Black Rose is defended. He's reeling back to do another strike, it looks like. We've got the foot of the kite, like, coming into view here. And he's dashing in. Same as it ever was. She blocks. And we swap around to the other perspective from down below, looking up. The area is now, like, infected. I also really like the bottom left of this mountain where you can see in the distance that nice purple, like, edge of the skybox, the horizon there. We have our kite-like character coming into frame. Very glitchy. I don't see any like through lines in the glitches that we can like compare things, but you can still see the glitchiness in the back here, so. And then our kite character looks very determined here, is the word I'm going to use for this expression. Like they have intent. And they're watching this fight play out. So yeah, so like I said, this purple is not a shading thing. That's just how their hair is colored, apparently, in the concept art. I thought it was part of, like, the chromatic aberration at first, but based on the concept art, that's just the color of their hair. Alright. They close their eyes and, like, their determination. And I would say this is angry? We've got that inverted palette again. And then we've swapped to a slightly side perspective, looking at their right cheek and their right eye. And they're like maybe grimacing. Like, it could still be anger, it could be like some pain, which, you know, you can have pain because you're angry. And then we're fading out to see where the what I'm gonna call the bracelet would be. And their fingers are all jacked up. Definitely gives vibes of like this is not supposed to happen, right? Your fingers aren't supposed to move that way. Your hand's not supposed to move that way on your wrist. It honestly looks like it's acting on its own, right? It's like a possessed thing here. Looks like they're coming back around to like grab their arm, but then they stop there just to like hold their balance. So maybe their arm is just up to try and balance. And then this is where their character gets glitchy, right? You can start to see like polygons where the textures stop loading. You just have like a wireframe underneath. And I think that's just an artistic representation of that, because I don't think that's the actual polygons of the model. Something added in post to give the impression of polygons. I mean, they might have. They might have rendered this as a wireframe and as the final skinned piece, and then just overlaid the portions that they wanted to from the wireframe cut. Because there's some places where vertices are clustered that makes sense, like on that wrist. Yeah, I could see that. That could be the actual wireframe. Not sure what that bulb is on the chest. Yeah, well, no, the wireframe doesn't look right on the glove, right? Those pieces should have polygons on the facing side. Yeah, it feels like it's artistic representation. The hair. I love the hair getting like there's like wind on the character in these couple of shots, right? Not just, and I guess that's probably tied to this like electricity field thing that's going off. Oh, here we go. We get a lot of little polygon bits. It would make sense with the density of polygons nowadays that you would want to use a simplified. There could just have another model that's simplified that they use for wireframe shots. That makes a lot of sense, actually. Like, there's a low level of detail model that they use for wireframe shots. And that would explain why, like, the glove doesn't quite line up. And yeah, like, there's a lot of things that it's like, oh, the rounded fingertip. The farthest left fingertip here goes, like, completely square when it's wireframed. So it's just like a low level of detail model. But also there's some really bad vertex stuff going on in like the legs that wouldn't be in a properly made model. There's some interesting choices here. Is that the mouth on the face? I can't tell if like that's supposed to represent the mouth or what. Something I didn't notice before that we're looking at this. Do you see those little balls? That's kind of Ida-esque, isn't it? Which is like the evil AI from .hackgu. I don't want to call it evil, but like it's portrayed as malicious AI, and there's also like this bulbous bit in the arm that shows that is like, yeah, it's like representing something's coming out, right? There's like power moving through. And then we start to see what appears to be parts of like the bracelet show up here. We've got rings, and we've got the little hexagons, little data hexagons. Like a full ring showing up with like, I love this like red warning edge borders to the green central bracelet bit. And there's like some text in there that's not really legible, but it looks like it could be like an in-game language. Some of them look like alphabet characters and some of them don't. In the blue in here. Very cool. Very cool effect. Alright, so now the hand is no longer freaking out. This, like, bracelet is manifested. I love this frame smear here. Pulling the hand out in front of the face. And, like, doing the, balling up your fist in, like, a I'm taking back control kind of way. This still looks like determined and or angry to me. Like it doesn't look surprised or in like the grimace, the mouth grimace still gives a little bit of an idea of maybe pain, but this to me doesn't look like surprised or outside of control, especially with the balling up the fingers now really feels like it's like taking control. Powering up still. We get the intent in the eyes. Is there like preparing the weapon? And the hand splays out as they point it at their target. And we've got this like ball of energy in the middle as well with the lightning. And okay, so now they actually have their left hand up, focusing their arm, which I think was an actual kite thing with the bracelet. It's like using your left arm to stabilize the right to point it at the thing that you want to shoot the data drain at. This still looks very like intent and angry. The legs look like very stable, like they've got control here. The bag's flopping around in the wind with their hair. The bag's actually in a kind of awkward position here, but it may have just flopped around to their side instead of on their back from the force of the movement. I like the data streams that are coming in around this, is what it looks like. Or are those like the fingers of the bracelet, like the arms of the bracelet? It's hard to tell. This definitely feels like firing a weapon off here. Okay, here we go. Now we've got like bracelet is opened up and is like targeting reticle activated. You've got the counter moving rings, which is very nice. Still got some of the wireframe coming in. And then the inverted colors to show like the glitchiness of it all. Very nice effect. Is that the... I think those are like the arms of the bracelet all splayed out. Like it's hard to tell if it's like a solid... Like it feels like... So these red like petals that are coming out around the edges, around the whole frame, it feels like they're supposed to be like... They're intending for them to appear like invisible, and then there's like waves of energy are making them visible, right? So like you can see it like pulse through and it like lights them up. And then they go back to being like really translucent and less visible. Very cool. And then the hexagons going like in and out of existence is interesting too. Like data is like being generated and deleted and regenerated based on like the criteria that's presented before it or whatever. Again, still just like, it just gives vibes of the glitchiness. There's that pulse out again on like the pedals. Is this the fire? I think that's it firing. Got a really cool like anime effect. White out, and then what do we see? Dot hack. So we don't know what they're aiming at. This perspective makes it look like, so they're not aiming down, right? They're aiming in front of them, but they're not aiming down, which makes it seem like they're not necessarily aiming at the ball monk-like or the black rose-like. But this could also just be a framing choice that is like, when they change the camera angle, it's very clear they're actually pointing down at one of the two characters. But they could also just be pointing up in the air. And then, title reveal. So what I was talking about before was the dot here is a square. It's not the hexagon. We'll go look through the interview to review that. We've got, hey, look, https://www.cc2. I think that's their real website. So it's probably just advertising. Oh yeah, it literally goes to this one, which is like .co.jp. There is an English website for their business. CC2. I don't know if we need a specific 30th anniversary. There's an English version. Oh, here we go. There you go. English. What is this? Oh, this is other stuff that they have. This is, yeah. Is this old? I think this is an old one. Yeah, because oh, I guess that's their 25th anniversary website. This is the 30th anniversary website. Did this translate? This one went to English. Okay. Here's the English one. I think this is that literal video. Nope. This is something else. I have not watched that. Don't know what that is. They've got some changes to the business. Oh, this is like a blog. This is not the website I was familiar with. But there is an English website for them, and there is like a merch store for them as well. You can buy stuff from. So yeah, so here's that text. This world is at dusk. It matches with us so well. That I was talking about is in one of those error boxes. Someone also translated, quote unquote, I use that in quotes just because we don't know if it means anything. These words at the bottom, I don't know what language it was translated from, but they felt just like individual terms that maybe give the vibe of what this game's going to be like. We've got Hiroshi as an executive producer. If you're familiar with the original games and GU, he's Pyros. He's the self-insert character Pyros. And it's Project Dusk, which is where we get into the maybe it's getting dark rather than having a positive outlook on the future of the internet. Yeah. So that's that. I wanted to, we're done with this. Don't need that anymore. There's some other bits in here. We can just scroll through this really quickly. Let's just double check. So there's new concept. So one of the things, before I started this is 2 days after that video came out, there's a magazine that came out today with more stuff in it. It looks like most of the content, it hasn't been fully translated at the time of when I started this stream. It might be fully translated now, because it's been really long. We were told that there was going to be more stuff in there, and so there's more images which show, this is cute, probably beast characters making a comeback in this version, and it looks like they're still very chibi, like they were in R2, compared to Uka in R1, or Oka. And yeah, so this person's got some translation human-like beasts rather than like the puppy dog Gaspard in R2. They're also saying Black Rose, Balmonk, and Kite resemble past characters, and that it's unclear if they have any connection to said characters. Basically a way of saying, hey, these could be a new iteration of these characters, or just entirely new characters that have similar designs, which I think is, yeah, that's basically the vibe that we get off of the interview, right? There's a lot of stuff that they don't want to confirm or speak to at this point in time, even though they are providing us like with this teaser trailer and other stuff. Let's close that out. Here's that translated image from earlier. So this is read right to left, right? So with this character first, then this character second, then it cuts back to this character. I didn't know you have a liking for classic cars. Thanks to this being old, not even Morgana can interfere here. Indeed, this doesn't even have a navigator. So I think this is where people are saying that Morgana is referenced, which is like the 4 AI, FORE, pre-AI, which is a version of an AI that's not fully developed that was supposed to help develop the perfect AI, which was like the fully functional AI like Aura. So assuming this is still like is not just like words being thrown around, this suggests that Morgana would still exist in this setting, which is an interesting thought. Again, take it with a grain of salt. It's just some concept art, so it doesn't have to be adapted into the real thing. This is I think this is actually showing what the pages are for the magazine that just came out today. I'm not going to go into that really a lot. And then we have the excerpt of this interview, which is in that magazine, which came out 2 days ago with that teaser trailer that we just watched. We skipped around a lot in here, but let's try to continue where we left off. We talked about how they're probably going to have more real world in the game, whatever that means, whether it becomes, people have likened it to maybe like Persona real world sections or Digimon real world sections in the video games. And they're saying that was specifically that's limited by their production previously. They couldn't include more real life. And now they're saying that they can do whatever they want. And they also aren't limited by partially Bandai Namco Entertainment, because they're being very hands-off, and like I said, they're putting nothing on the line and they're letting CC2 do whatever they want, it seems like. They are saying that they want more real-world drama, and so I think that's going to be... We saw... I don't think I touched on this actually in the video, but we saw the image of a person in a hospital bed, which suggests that the coma victims are coming back as a consequence of like playing the game, or just the game being on the net and the net being pervasive and interconnected. So it feels like that's probably going to be a focus of the quote-unquote real-world sections of the game, is probably going to be something like either the relationships with you have people around you in the real world, whether you're meeting up with people that are online that you meet up with in the real world after meeting them online, or vice versa. If you have any friends that you make in the real world that join you in the game, like in the original game, Kite and Orca were friends in the real world, which is how Orca got Kite to play, his player. Or things like that. And they're saying they had email systems and message boards to try to give that was their version of the real world stuff. And it sounds like they want those conversations to be quote-unquote real conversations between the characters rather than sent via electronic methods. So, grain of salt again. Also, I'm not sure how much of this is inferred information based on the context of the interview versus what is actually meant by Matsuyama with his full context of what they're developing right now. They mentioned that they're bringing in new people to work on the project, or at least they've been training people over the course of other games that they've been working on. So that there's like fresh blood, but there's also old blood in remaking this .hack IP, or like bringing it back. Yep, looks like all that. Talk about the music, which Lean, I think, made something a couple years ago for .hack. I think that's why they said they're familiar with their works. And then Taro Hakase is that violinist that played that. They made the music that had the violin in it in that video that we watched. Here's that. We've already gone over this discussion about the music. Here's the title. So this is something I wanted to talk about early on, but I completely missed it. This is separate from .hack Z.E.R.O, the light novel, which is an unfinished series, right? So they just want to clarify that it has no relation to that whatsoever. They've put periods in between it, so it's not the same as that one, and it has no relation to that specifically. And they expound upon that we are restarting .hack from zero. As one possible message that you can take from that. Going through title, iterations, still unnamed protagonists, so like when we call them a Kite-like or the other characters, because we don't even know that this Kite-like is even the protag. We assume they're the protag, but they may not be. But they just call them still unnamed protag, so they may not even have a name yet in development, or it's, maybe they'll just be the hero, right? They want to give a distinctly different, challenging impression compared to previous entries in the series. A lot of people complain that Kite is too passive, and then there's complaints that Haseo is too much of a good word for someone who's very counter. He's very counterculture and just in general an angry person who's not easy to get along with. But it seems like they want something that is less passive than Kite, and it doesn't sound like they're considering Haseo at all with this protagonist. Like they're not considering like pulling in any of those elements. The black and white, which gets back into the liminality aspect. They want to do the constant messaging that they have, which is like you're a different person online than you are IRL. You're a different person with one friend group than you are with another friend group. You're a different person to other people than you are to yourself. All of those sorts of themes are still here, which is really nice to see, because I really like those themes. Yeah, so they talk about that here. The information before us and the actual living person posting it are never identical. Going back to like the Twitter stuff in there, where the person posting that really possibly personal, stressed out message being judged for specifically the content of that message and not the whole human being that ended up generating that message, which is just a small portion of them. They confirm the genre is RPG, which doesn't tell us a whole lot other than because RPG is more like how characters develop within the story frame of a video game and not the way that you I guess it is partially how you interact with the game, but it's not a fundamental part of how you interact with the game. It's that you get choices to do different things with a character in a role-playing game, I guess. It's fuzzy. The RPG is a really broad category. You have like tabletop RPGs like Dungeons and Dragons, where you're literally making a character from scratch and you're improving them iteratively over the course of the story. And then you have JRPGs, like we'll go back to Persona or Dragon Quest, where you don't create the character, but you have choices that you get to make along the way that theoretically influence at least the way you perceive that character, even if it doesn't change the story itself. So I think that's probably a good way to describe RPG. And that's the only information I think that we have. So it says complex blend of action and adventure, which again, very generic. Adventure is moving around within the game space, and usually like collecting items to some degree, or at least collecting information to some degree. And action is usually you have button presses that are more timing based, or at least it's a good way to put it, because even a turn based game is still an action game, compared to like a visual novel. A visual novel is not an action game because the only button presses you're doing are to progress the story. They're not for instance, like the RPG elements where a lot of RPGs usually have combat of some sort, and it's assumed that there's probably going to be combat in this. And a lot of times, action is you're going to be your combat, right? So, adventure is exploring things. Probably different fields would be comparative to previous .hack stuff. And then action would be the actual combat with stuff, interacting with chests. In a lot of games, if there's like platformers are technically action games. They're a subset of action games because you have to do the action of the platforming. That's more of the timing based stuff. But like I said, you can have turn based action stuff too. Atmosphere and image. So previously, like I said, we talked about this. .hack previously was like at the internet was at its infancy, right? It was nascent is the right word for that. It was early and people were optimistic about where it was going to go. And now they're saying it's integrated into our real life. Like it's just a part of life. It's not something that people are unfamiliar with or are learning about in general. So sense of distance from the internet has changed. I think this is where that real life versus online is going to come into play. It would be very interesting if they actually make it so that if your character has like the essentially something equivalent to like the Google Lens, where they're like getting notifications as they're like walking around on the street, or it could just be your phone buzzing, that sort of thing. But being able to swap back and forth, which we've seen in .hack before, where they have head-mounted displays which double as like their phones, but they can also play the game while they're like on the train or walking somewhere, whatever the case may be. And he's also talking about how it's like a darker tone, a darker understanding of the internet than it was previously. And says that the digital suspense, it's unsettling atmosphere, which it says reminiscent of the original .hack, which you had from the like viruses and infection that was spreading early on, right? There was the digital suspense was from not knowing what something was going to happen. And I'm curious if that's what they mean by this, or if they want to tie that in with the malice and creepiness of like the darker tone of the internet. So take that as you will. I think they're probably completely separate. I think this is just saying it's like that previous stuff where there's some unknown about like viruses and things where it's like, oh, well, that's unsafe, but how is it unsafe? Or is it unsafe? I need to download something that does this, but is that a safe thing to download? That sort of stuff. And I'm not sure what they mean by this. This is the structure is designed so that by the end you feel the unique language and overwhelming intensity established by CyberConnect 2 and .hack.gu. That one I just don't understand. I would love to hear people's thoughts on this phrase. I really don't know what they mean by that. Like overwhelming intensity in GU, I would probably liken to it's like the PKKing, the arena battles. Haseo he was angry and he was taking action because he was angry. He's a very action-oriented protag. And also very reactive, too, compared to, like I said, how, like, docile Kite is. So maybe that's where they're talking about maybe bringing in some of that. Will the antagonistic forces of the protag's face also be different? Yes. So, to me, evil corporations appear, because CC Corp in the IP up to this point is bad in so much as they do cover-ups. They're they're willing to leave dangerous programming in so that they can continue to make profits, rather than take the product off the shelves and fix it. So that's the type of evil that they're talking about when they reference the evil corporations appearing as well. Um, and but they're saying antagonistic forces. It feels like I never really felt like CC Corp was the enemy. Like there's a backdrop of they're the reason this is happening. Yes, and they could just take it down, but it really did feel like Morgana or Cubia, Ida, Tri-Edge were the antagonistic forces because those were the ones that you were facing constantly in the game. Um, so I'm curious why I. It's interesting that their perspective of this is very different. It feels like it didn't come across that way in the actual media that they presented. But they're saying that they want more of the antagonistic online society that currently exists. Yeah, and then portraying the multi-layered structure of society as the enemy. There's a lot that you can read into this. I'm not going to stay around to read the whole thing, though. We're still in the online game, The World. Does not confirm that it's MMO, but it is online. And then we talked about the game that we're going to be playing as people, as real people, is an action adventure RPG. Time period. A world 10 years in the future. So if we're in 2026, 2036 would be roundabouts the time frame to look at. Which, like I said, the whole IP, like the whole setting, is usually near future. And I think this is one of the reasons why it's really good to do a reboot, is that the near future of .hack has deviated from the near future of the current world as the IP progressed, because they built on stuff that they already had, and that stuff was deviating from the real world. So if this is, I'm hoping that this is some form of reboot that allows them to realign with our reality so that the near future they're presenting is more believable and realistic in the way that the original media was. Um, can't say much about the characters or the world. It doesn't directly connect to the past series, so a lot of people are really excited that this is going to be a good entry point for people. It's not going to be weighed down by the baggage of, oh, well, you actually need to go back and watch this like 2002 anime and then play this game from 2004, which is going to be like 120 hours of your life, and then also watch this OVA that tied in with it that you have to stop playing to go watch it, and then all of that like complicated stuff. Just come in, play the game, and get an entry into the series, and if you like it, then you can pick up other media, the old media. It's not a sequel. Yeah, there's no way to. You don't need to feel intimidated thinking I don't know what this series is. Seems hard to get into, which is an issue that .hack has. So it'll be refreshing to have something that is just like play it and tell me what you think. No release date. Again, hoping for this year or next year. And that's about it. So yeah, I think we've covered pretty much everything that I wanted to cover in here. I guess I could have turned this on sooner rather than later, but it was very nice hanging out with y'all. I'm gonna edit out a bunch of the dead air that was in here, and we'll get this posted up because I haven't seen anyone do a frame by frame of this yet, and I think it would be really interesting to see people's opinions of this video in a frame by frame manner. Bye bye.